Okay, so let's dive into this. We've got this question from VJ who was thinking, 6 months to learn Python and land an analytics or data science internship after engineering. Seems kind of reasonable on the surface, right? A decent chunk of time.
Yeah, it sounds like a solid plan.
Yeah.
But then Bargava comes in with this counterpoint.
Yeah.
He basically asks, why 6 months? Why that long for something you could potentially learn while doing the job?
Exactly. And that immediately throws a wrench in the works, makes you question that whole extended study period idea.
It really does. It points to maybe a different way of thinking about getting into these fields now. Less front-loading everything, perhaps more agile learning.
Mm.
What do you think people assume they need to pack into those 6 months?
That's a good question. I guess the assumption is you need like a massive technical toolkit, deep theory, the works, before anyone will even look at you.
Right, mastery before entry.
Yeah. But Bargava flips that. So for this deep dive, we're digging into this text exchange that's full of advice and, honestly, some surprising takes on breaking into analytics and data science.
And our goal here isn't just to list tools to learn. It's more about pulling out the really practical, maybe even unconventional advice for landing that internship, thinking beyond just, coding skills.
Definitely. We want to give you a clearer, more focused path, maybe help cut through some of that noise and overwhelm people feel when they see endless lists of things to learn.
And connecting this back, the first big thing that jumps out is Bargava's point about the timeline being much shorter. He explicitly says an internship is doable in significantly lesser time than 6 months.
Which is, frankly, kind of a relief to hear, isn't it? If you're feeling like you need years before you can even apply for something.
Absolutely. It reframes the whole entry point.
And he gets pretty specific about what you do need technically, at least to start. Python is there, obviously the core language, NumPy, Pandas, those are crucial.
Workhorses for data work in Python, yeah.
He also throws in DuckDB as a possibility, maybe FastAPI and Flask too, for building simple apps or APIs.
Right. Tools to actually show something working.
And of course, SQL. Can't forget SQL. Ideally PostgreSQL, he says, but, Squelette is fine to get started locally.
And the really interesting part is his estimate for learning just these fundamentals. He figures, 4 to 6 weeks?
Yeah, 4 to 6 weeks. Which sounds incredibly fast when you think about the breadth of data science.
It suggests a really focused initial burst, doesn't it? Just nail down these absolute essentials first. NumPy and Pandas, for instance, they let you handle and analyze data effectively. That's your foundation right there.
But then, okay, this is where the conversation takes a really sharp turn. Because after outlining those tech skills, Bargava basically says, hold on, the tech isn't the real problem.
Right. He shifts focus completely to what he calls the problems or barriers that actually hold people back. And it's a list of non-technical stuff.
Super revealing. You'd think lack of coding skills would be number one, but no. He starts with lack of confidence.
And then absolutely terrible communication skills. He mentions that one twice, actually, which in data science makes sense. You have to explain complex stuff simply.
That really stands out. The double mention, it's not just about speaking English. It's about clear, effective communication of technical ideas.
Exactly. And the list goes on. Inability to become accountable. Inability to brainstorm, especially, he notes, with people who might speak English more fluently.
That's an interesting nuance. And then inability to break down problems. That classic divide and conquer approach, not being able to do it.
Also, failing to show quick wins, approximate stuff, getting bogged down in perfection instead of showing progress.
Or not having an interest in knowing the big picture, just focusing narrowly on the task, not the context.
He even mentions generally terrible social skills, which can be a factor in team environments.
Yeah. And then there are these self-management things, like the inability to do personal retrospectives, to reflect and learn from your own work.
And this one's fascinating. The inability to ask for help. He calls asking for help the biggest superpower a fresher can have.
That's huge, because asking for help is often seen as a weakness, right?
Exactly. And finally, just a general inability to work in teams.
It's quite a list.
Yeah.
And the kicker is his statement, lack of technical skills is never listed here.
Which is a bold claim.
It is. His logic is basically, if you have the confidence and the communication and teamwork skills, the team can figure out the technical gaps together. The non-technical foundations are what matter more initially.
It really emphasizes the collaborative side of these roles. Maybe companies are looking more for people who can integrate and learn within a team rather than perfect solo coders.
Then he brings up this cultural issue angle, which adds another layer. He talks about how in some backgrounds, people are sort of taught to follow instructions.
Right, and discouraged from questioning authority figures.
Yeah, this idea that, elders or bosses are always right, you shouldn't challenge them.
And also a reluctance to boast or even just state your accomplishments clearly. That feeling of, I shouldn't talk myself up.
How does that cultural piece tie back into the earlier points, do you think?
Well, it connects directly, doesn't it? If you're hesitant to question things or speak up about your work, that impacts your communication, your confidence, your ability to brainstorm, or even ask for help.
Yeah, it feeds right into those non-technical barriers he identified. It definitely challenges some ingrained ideas about how you should behave, especially early in your career.
It does. So, okay, we've got the tech basics, we've got these non-technical hurdles.
Yeah.
What's the actual plan? How does someone move forward? Bargava suggests some specific resources.
He does. For learning, he points to things like automate the boring stuff for Python, which is super practical.
Great starting point, very hands-on.
Then Free Code Camp for SQL tutorials. And for the database part, using free tiers of serverless PostgreSQL, like Supabase or just plain old SQLite locally.
All very accessible, low-cost ways to get the technical foundation. Using something like Supabase is great because you get a real PostgreSQL database without the headache of managing servers yourself. Easy to start.
But the core message isn't just about tutorials. He really emphasizes becoming a maniac about doing projects. Active building, not passive learning.
That's the key shift. Less reading, more doing.
And crucially, he says you have to write about these projects. Even if they feel trivial and stupid at first, put them out there.
Ah, the visibility aspect. So use LinkedIn, write short posts about what you built, what you learned, the problems you hit. Get recruiters to notice your activity, your progress.
Yeah, it's not about waiting until you have some perfect masterpiece portfolio. It's about showing you're consistently doing stuff, learning stuff, sharing stuff.
He uses that analogy, right, about the person just posing like they're going to lift a mountain versus the person actually picking up small rocks.
Exactly. You got to start shipping even stupid stuff just to build momentum and learn by doing. It's messy at first.
Like turning on an old tap first, you get sputtering air and maybe some rusty water.
Yeah.
But if you keep it running, eventually you get good, clean water. Consistent effort leads to refined skills and clearer thinking.
So what kind of projects? He suggests keeping them relatively short, doable in maybe 2 weeks. Interesting, but not overwhelmingly complex.
And he gives that great example. An IPL dashboard.
Yeah.
The Indian Premier League.
Right. Because it's relevant, there's data available, and you can ask all sorts of interesting questions like analyzing sixes hit or home ground advantage or trying to find Moneyball players based on stats or comparing how different teams are built, lots of angles.
And the real skill you're building with these projects, he says, is learning how to ask good questions and form hypotheses. That's the core of analytics work.
Yeah, it's not just coding, it's the thinking behind it. He even suggests doing projects in different areas, like maybe movie box office analysis next.
Why different areas?
To see the common threads, the meta patterns, and how you ask analytical questions, regardless of the specific domain, it's about developing that transferable analytical mindset.
Okay, so you do these smaller projects, you write about them.
Yeah.
Then what? Then, after you've shipped maybe 6 or so projects, say over about 3 months, he recommends stepping up the theoretical learning. Specifically, tackling Designing Data-Intensive Applications by Martin Kleppman.
Ah, that book. It's a classic, but pretty dense.
It is, and he says read it thoroughly, multiple times even.
And here comes another pretty bold claim. He suggests that getting through those projects and deeply understanding Kleppman's book could actually bring your fundamental technical understanding close to that of, say, a new grad joining Google.
It's a high bar, but it speaks to the power of combining practical application with deep dives into core concepts. Build first, then solidify the theory.
And notice what's not prioritized early on.
Right. He specifically suggests pushing design and analysis of algorithms, like the formal computer science stuff, to maybe the second year of learning. Focus on application first.
Makes sense for getting that first internship. Practical skills trump theory initially. Now, what about all the AI tools, like ChatGPT? Where do they fit in?
Good question. Bargava addresses LLMs, but the timing is key. He suggests bringing them in around the 3rd month.
So after you've done some initial struggling and problem solving on your own.
Exactly. Once you've built some foundational understanding and troubleshooting skills, then use tools like ChatGPT or maybe Cursor, which is an AI code editor, or others he mentioned like Windsurf, Lovable, Bolt. Use them to help generate starter code or maybe build analytics apps faster.
But not as a crutch from day one.
Precisely. And he also explicitly advises against trying to learn full-stack development in that first year. Keep it focused tight on analytics and data science fundamentals.
Okay, so pulling this all together, the big takeaway really seems to be that the path to an analytics or data science internship, it's potentially much shorter than that initial 6-month idea.
Yeah, potentially much shorter, but the focus shifts dramatically. It's less about just cramming technical knowledge.
And much more about those non-technical skills: communication, confidence, problem solving, teamwork, asking for help.
Absolutely. Those seem to be the real differentiators, according to Bargava. Combine those skills with a consistent habit of building projects, however small, and writing about them.
And you paint a picture of a much more achievable, dynamic way into the field.
It feels more empowering, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Focus on action, on asking questions, on showing your work, even the early, kind of rough stuff.
it really does. It's about progress, not perfection.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Think about that list of non-technical problems. Bargava mentioned the confidence, the communication, accountability, asking for help, all that.
Which one of those, maybe, resonates with you the most? Where do you see a potential blocker for yourself?
And forget the tech skills for a second. What's one small, concrete thing you could do today to start working on that specific non-technical aspect?
Yeah, how could you practice, say, breaking down a problem analytically or communicating an idea more clearly, even in what you're doing right now, whatever that is? That might be just as valuable as another hour of coding tutorials.